Entrepreneurs Enigma is a podcast for the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. So the wins and the fails that we all face being entrepreneurs, how we learn from adversity. Every week I talk to a different entrepreneur with a story to tell. I'm Seth Goldstein. Come with me on the journey. This is Entrepreneurs Enigma. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Entrepreneurs Enigma podcast. I'm always Seth, your host. You know that by now. I am here with Adam Dornbusch of Entribe. Let me add him to the stream here. He has one heck of a story. He had, before Entribe, and you can elaborate more on this, before Entribe, he helped GoPro become what GoPro is today. Like, what you know of GoPro is because of this man. He'll be modest. He probably will say it to other people, too. But, I mean, it was pretty cool. I saw you on the Chief Poobah of the Marketing Podcast Network, Jason Falls' podcast. And I'm like, this guy has a story. I mean, that's pretty wild. So, Adam, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here.
How's weather? You're in Los Angeles, right?
No, I'm just outside of San Francisco, actually.
Oh, you're San Francisco. You're farther north. So
yeah,
it's a little colder?
It's a little bit colder, but it's like 65 degrees, gorgeous.
Oh, it's warmer here. It's like 87 here.
Oof, wow.
It's hot. It's hot for April. So I'm in the basement, but it's also like a igloo down in the basement, so go figure. So Adam, how you doing today? How's everything?
Everything's great, Beautiful day, just cranking along.
Absolutely. I like for those who are watching the video, check out his fish tank on the TV behind him. I love that. That's a nice little touch.
That's the default Roku background.
But I like it because you don't have to feed them.
Right.
It's awesome. Love it. So Adam, let's start off with, what is Entribe?
Cool. So Entribe is a CRM platform for managing a distributed creator community. What that really means is creators all over the world, everyone's taking photos and videos, uploading to social media. Everyone's a creator these days, but they're interacting with brands through social media, and the brands have no control over their creators. So brands are working with influencers and other people like that, but it's really hard to manage a distributed creator network at scale. You can, do some emails, have some spreadsheets, try to DM people on social media, but managing them over time at scale is super labor intensive. We built Entribe. We built Entribe to streamline that process. So, I mean, if you're dealing with 10, 20 creators, no problem. If you're dealing with hundreds or thousands of creators, you need a system like Entribe to be able to communicate with them, reward them, manage their content, and the content licensing rights in one place.
So when we talk about that, we're not talking about just like, hey, influencer, here's a bunch of crap, go play with it, and do stuff. You're talking about user-generated content. You're talking about, like, you're actually saying, let's work together, let's collaborate, let's build this content, we'll then license it from you so we can use it on our platforms as well. It's not like Kim Kardashian, well, a bad example because she does everything wrong, but like an influencer out there who gets a thing and only puts it on her stream, or his or her, their stream, and that's it. This is actually so you can reuse it and put it on your stream, reuse it. And a lot of times these people come up with a lot of fun stuff that isn't necessarily what you would have thought of as a company.
Exactly. The biggest difference I would say is influencers, you're giving them the brand pitch. You're telling them what you want them to do. You're paying them up front. So it's a paid ad. And then they go do whatever they want and you have very little control over it. But they're producing what they want to produce. What we're talking about is working with your authentic community, the people that are already engaging with the brand. So people that are already fans of the brand, they might be your employees, your customers, your students, your fans, your sports team, whoever it is, whoever's already part of your community, authentically engaging with them. You're not paying them up front. You're telling them, hey, this is what I'd like you to do. And then you're making their content better because you're giving them tips and tricks of what kind of content is on brand for you. And then you own that content. So you can take that content and use it in any of your marketing materials, not just social media. Billboards, GoPro made a Super Bowl commercial out of one.
Yeah. Well, GoPro is also special. I mean, GoPro has their devices strapped to people's heads for crying out loud, doing crazy things. I mean, they have a Super Bowl commercial pretty much already there. I mean, with what people do for it.
You're right, but I would actually say that like everyone's got a camera phone in their pocket today.
That's
Everyone's
true.
capturing what we used to say at GoPro is we capture life's most meaningful moments. And that's true because you're usually at the point of action because it's really an action camera. But more often than not, I don't have my GoPro with me. It's not charged, it's not fired up. When something amazing is happening, I pull out my camera phone.
Yeah, that's so true. And when you think about it, I guess you plan more with a GoPro to do
Right.
something. You like when my dog's acting cute or my kid actually wants to smile at the camera, I grab my phone. I don't even grab a camera anymore. Like, what the heck's a camera? I mean,
Right.
I have a T4i Canon over there that I had when he was born 10 years ago. I used to love that thing, and I don't pull it out anymore because my camera phone is just as good, if not better.
And it's on you all the time. It's always there.
Unfortunately for most things.
Right.
So before you started Entribe, you were at GoPro, and before that, you were at a lot of other places. So give me the lineage. Who's Adam?
Well, I never thought I'd end up in user generated content. Definitely never thought I'd work for a camera company. So rewind, back when I got my start in media, I started some of the first video on demand television networks,
Oh,
pre
wow.
Netflix streaming, pre all of that. We started up what the first one was Ripe Digital Entertainment, RIPE. And that ended up, blowing up, becoming a pretty big deal. Early days, we're talking 2003, 2004. Then I went over to Stars Encore and I programmed the precursor to Netflix streaming, which was called Vongo, video on the go at the time. And then Netflix actually licensed that from us and
Oh,
got their
really?
first
Oh, that's
slate of
right.
first run movies.
That's right. Because I remember Stars was all that. This was everything on Netflix was a Stars thing at the very
Right.
beginning.
It was all Stars, Encore, and Sony and Disney movies, which was through our licenses.
Oh.
So Stars and Encore had the exclusive video on demand subscription SVOD license rights to Sony and Disney movies. And that was the first ones that Netflix ever got because they licensed it from us. And I was the
So
head
it
of
was a
programming over
license
there.
of a license.
Correct.
Wow. That's a
Early
big
days. And
deal.
this is 2005 to 2007. Then I went on to Tribeca Film, a couple other stops, Access 360 Media, ended up at Current TV, Al Gore's TV network, ran
Yeah.
biz dev for him for a little while. And
You
then,
also met you also met Bob De Niro.
oh yeah, at Tribeca Film, I used to work for him
Yeah.
for a little bit.
I bet that he's a character.
We built his first slate of films. So Tribeca Film was the film festival. He wanted to
Yeah.
take that film festival and put it on video on demand. So he wanted to put on like United Seatbacks, Comcast on demand, things like that. So he brought me in to help. He and Jane and a bunch of other smart people brought me in to help figure out how to do that. So we licensed the first slate of films that we actually own the rights to, and then we put it on as the Tribeca Film package.
That's wild. And then from there, you're not GoPro yet.
No, so after that, went to Current TV. Current TV, we were licensing citizen journalism from all over the world. So this is my first step into user-generated content. And so all over the world, people capturing what's cool, what's happening on the ground in Afghanistan, Iraq, wherever, send it to us. We'll put it on TV and video on demand. And so we had a channel low on the cable dial, but it was, on Time Warner, Comcast, Dish, Direct. And it was a groundbreaking TV network. We ended up selling to Al Jazeera for $500 million.
Not a bad exit. It's not a bad exit.
Yeah, just a small amount. Al did pretty well on that. And Joel Hyatt was really running the ship at that point. So they were business partners. And then I went over to GoPro. So Nick tapped me and said, hey, you know how to license user-generated content better than anyone right now. We need to do that at a bigger scale. We need to blow this thing up because you're licensing, I think at the time I had about 2,000 creators around the world. He said, that's great. I want 100,000 creators. How do we manage that?
That's a little ambitious. That's a little ambitious, yeah.
And at the time, they had never really licensed user-generated content at GoPro. This is 2 years before they IPO'd, so this is roughly 10 years ago.
Wow.
And so I came in and I said, all right, let's figure out how we're going to do this. And we didn't have the tech that Entribe has at the time. So we had to patch things together. We still were using a lot of spreadsheets to manage our creators, but we've partnered with a company called Vidlet for the upload widget and a couple other things. It was a real patchwork solution of this team could help us reward, this team could help us upload. We're managing the rights in the background with our legal team.
That's what you do at the very beginning. That's what you do. Sure. You mix and match, and then eventually you say, we need to build a whole package.
Right. We had to figure out the process. We had to figure out what we didn't know at the time.
Exactly. So fast forward, you eventually left GoPro. You started up Entribe. You got
Yep.
rid of the spreadsheets. You made everything. You streamlined the process. I mean, you really saw an issue that needed to be resolved, and you filled it.
And the hardest part was really managing the creators. So the content, there's a lot of digital asset management systems or DAMs out there. Um, there's a lot of communication tools out there, but managing creators at scale with their content and the licensing rights all in one place and being able to reward them as well, that didn't exist. So we were trying to figure out how to do that at scale and make it easy for any brand to do it internationally, wherever that creator is. Let's be able to communicate with them at scale and track it over time. Because once you lose that creator communication, the influencer model is really a one and done model. You work with an influencer once, you pay him once, it's done. If you want to do it again, you have to start the whole process over again. This is you're starting to build a creator network, which you can retap over time, and it's a snowball effect. So every time you engage your creators, you get more and more and more, and the content and the quality.
You keep it too,
right? And you get to keep it,
which is kind of nice. Unlike when you accidentally use a image that you didn't license, and they charge you $2,000, and not that I'm bitter or anything like that, but and they don't let you can keep the image at that point. They're like, you just made a mistake. So at least here, this is all above board. Is my point. And everyone's getting paid, everyone's happy, and that's really neat.
And to your point about keeping it, so one of our longest and largest tech giants, they're actually one of the top 5 in the world. I'm not allowed to name them, but they do have a camera phone.
Hint. Yeah.
Yep. Anyways, they've been a client of ours for about 4 years, and they use us for a lot of their commercials. And they have a massive archive of content that they have different marketing initiatives every single week. And so they're just reaching back into that archive. And we've got AI and a bunch of other meta tagging and things like that, some really deep tech on the data warehouse side to help them find that content quickly. So they have millions of assets that they can go through, find the content that matches their marketing initiatives, pull them out, and they don't have to re-engage the creators to relicense it. They've got the licensing rights already attached to the images, so they know what they can use it for.
That's brilliant. All right, so to get into the whole thing of the entrepreneurial journey here, what has been the best thing about being an entrepreneur versus being part of the larger, or I guess, the organization? I would say organism, but same thing.
There's a lot of pros and cons of being part of a large organization.
That's the next question too. Is going to be what keeps you up at night. So you can merge the two.
Yep, I'll start off with the benefits. The flexibility, being able to pivot on a dime, being able to move quickly and iterate fast is definitely the biggest advantage. Large organizations just can't move quickly. There takes a lot of buy-in from a lot of different teams, as well as you've got a lot of people to report into. I do have investors who ultimately I do have to report to, but ultimately these are my decisions and I control the board. So I get to pivot and I get to move nimbly. So
that's great. Yeah.
You still have some responsibility of those decisions, but it doesn't hold you back from doing it fast.
That's fantastic. So then what keeps you up at night?
Resources. Those are the biggest issues. Is you're always strapped for resources. It's a very big give and take of, do you spend your resources here or there? You got to protect your employees. You got to protect, people are usually your biggest cost, but they're also your biggest asset. So you want to hire the best, you want to get the best talent, you want to pay them appropriately, but it's also very taxing on a small company. So there's a lot of give and take, and it's just resource constrained. Larger organizations have what feels like infinite resources at the time.
It feels like it. And I mean, they have their own issues. I mean, being bigger, they can't move. They're more like moving the Titanic around the iceberg instead of going through the iceberg. Yep. I guess that's a good analogy. Yeah, I guess that works. Yeah. So, all right. So here's the question of the podcast, the big one. What is the most important thing to carry with you all the time?
You mean like physically or mentally?
You can go as deep as you want.
To carry with you all the time, communication tools. You need to be able to respond fast if a flame heats up. Like the other day, there was an issue with the platform that we didn't want it to cause any problems with our clients, and that happened a lot early days. Several years ago, it was happening all the time when we were just building the platform. Now it almost never happens. Well, so when it does happen, I need to mobilize the team fast. And what's amazing about my team is they've got their phones with them all the time. And if they're not on their computer, they're on their phone. And, Slack is an amazing tool. We just basically raised the flag. Everyone jumped on within 10 minutes and it was solved fast, which is amazing. And, not one client ever saw an issue, but we've also got tracking tools. So we know if the client sees an issue, we can contact them immediately
and be proactive about it. And that way for them to be, what's going on?
That's the last thing you want is an email or a phone call from a disgruntled client.
Even if they're not disgruntled, they're just confused. They're
right.
Like, why is this thing not loading? Like, I had a problem with one of my CMSs today. I had to write them saying, what's going on? They're like, oh, we're working on it. I'm like, well, you could have told me that.
Right.
I'm like, it's fine. Go fix the servers. I got it. Stuff happens. But send out an email. Do an automatic email saying it's, I guess some people say they don't create a fire. If there's a small fire, they'll make it bigger. But sometimes it's better to just tell people. Say, we're fixing it. We're running the boat.
One of my bosses used to tell me, if you see a train that's going too fast and is going to go off the tracks, let everyone know before it goes off the track.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. Yeah. So where can people find you online? Where's your major watering hole? Where do you hang out?
So LinkedIn almost religiously. I mean, I work with social media all the time, but I also see the pitfalls of social media. So I try to stay away. On a personal level, on a business level, I'm there all the time. But LinkedIn's pretty easy to find me. But I'm also on Reddit all the time.
I love Reddit. It's so underutilized. It's awesome.
And I've got a bunch of WhatsApp app groups where I get a ton of information from in different veins. It's highly specialized. And then Slack, from a business perspective, it's super valuable.
It is. And then it's ENTRIBE. Is it .com?
Yep, .com. So it's Engage Your Tribe. So it's Entribe. So engageyourtribe.com. So ENTRIBE.
Love it. Love it. Adam, thank you so much for being on the program. Thank you for getting, it's 3 hours back. So it's not
9 a.m.
It's 9 a.m. It's a good time for you. Get the day started with a podcast. Well, thank you so much for being on the program, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, Seth. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Goldstein Media hopes you have enjoyed this episode. This podcast is one of the many great shows on the MPN Marketing Podcast Network.